Welcome back. I'm Kim Bailey. She's Fulyana Osborne, and this is Inside Exec. Today we are going to discuss, in terms of a case study, managing a staff member who is returning from another project into a team that has been working for some considerable time on a project. Now, this is a person who hasn't had involvement in this project previously, but has worked with this group previously and has been away on paid leave elsewhere in their lives doing something and has returned ready for work. So he's keen to work. So we'll get that in place first of all. Keen to work, keen to be back and doing things.
So, clarifying, the person was outside the organisation.
Outside the organisation.
Okay. Doing their own thing.
Doing their own thing and has come back, is ready to work, keen to work, wants to be a part of the team, hasn't worked with all of this team before but has worked with some of the team members and is in a position of being a subject matter expert, not necessarily related to this particular project, but useful for the team as a whole. So how do we manage this person? How do we introduce them back into the team, to the workforce, to the environment that needs to be in place for this project, for this organisation?
The first thing would be, is well before it's time to come in, is for the person in charge of the project to get to know that person, if they don't already. Talk about and prepare way ahead that person's expectation and make sure that those expectations and what the project leader needs from this person returning to do, so they are either aligned or understood. It's not what you want, but this is what we need. Or, yep, they're perfectly aligned. So starting way beforehand and getting to know each other and the fit into the team.
I will interject here and give you an example of I came back into an organisation after a period of leave and had this particular conversation with the manager before I actually started back in the office. Right. And he asked me a question, and there were two of us coming back separately from leave, but around about the same time. And he asked the same question of both of us, and he got completely different responses from both of us. So bear that in mind as well, that I was coming back and I was committed to coming back and I knew what I was coming back to. And I wasn't particularly concerned about where I came back to, because I thought, well, this is essentially a new beginning for me. I've had a nice break. I've done some other things. My head's clear. I'm ready to start again. So I'll approach this as an opportunity, as a fresh start. His words were, "Are you coming back for good, or is this just another interlude?" He was justified in asking it. It was the mid-1980s. And so he had responsibility to the organisation, to resourcing, to all of those sorts of things. He recognised my skills. He wanted me back. But I think what he was asking was, did I want something where I could throw myself into a long-term project, or did I have other plans that he would like to consider in terms of where he placed me when I came back into the organisation? And I was happy to tell him that at that point I had thought about it, and that at that point I was looking for longer term, but I also wanted to do some external study that related to some skills that I wanted to develop at that particular time. And so it was a win-win situation for both of us. I got the opportunity to say what I had been thinking about, and he had the opportunity to see if he could incorporate that into his planning in bringing me back into the organisation. The other person that he asked, unfortunately for him, took totally the opposite view and felt that it was an insult that he was asking in terms of her commitment to the organisation, and she actually took him to task over it and made it a quite unpleasant situation for both of them for no reason at all. Really, that wasn't the basis of the question, and had she known that he was asking that of everyone who was coming back at that time, perhaps she might have thought differently, perhaps she might not have. But my warning to you is to, when you have that conversation with someone coming back, make sure that it is clear why you are asking questions, if you're asking questions, and write down the information that they give you, whether or not you're going to use it. Write it down. Look like you're taking on that information that they're sharing with you.
So if that was happening now, it would be maybe even the same advice apply, but it might be different. So you really either having that person come back as a consultant, can be coming back as a contractor on specific period of time, on specific project, or could be coming back to the organisation long term. However, the very start of that new return is to work on this particular project. So again, the clarity in both the project leader and the person is important, but yes, be clear on what you're asking and why. Then the other thing is then communicating that to the team is very important. And it's not just about saying, well, we're lucky to have so-and-so come back and this is then their role and this is their expertise, etc., etc. It's doing exactly the same for every team member who's already there. So it's really about talking about each other's speciality, strength, participation, some of where they've done other projects that are similar, etc. So each person know each other's strength and use that to advantage as a collective.
It is very much about restarting. You can't bring in someone new, whether they're coming from legal or coming from another section, wherever it is, and you bring them in and you say, this is so-and-so and they've worked with us before. And
Yes.
so the underlying message you're giving out is that they know everything and that they're coming in as some sort of overseer or link between the management and the project team. All of these things, all of that disruption that change makes happen needs to be managed, as well as the people in this situation. If we look at some specific examples, is it different if they're coming back from another project? Do you take a different approach?
I think it's back to communication, and that is being on another project, and that person might be able to share what worked and didn't work only if it applies, because as you know, a lot of people say, well, I did that in such and such organisation, and that sometimes it's relevant, sometimes it isn't. So coming from another project, also give that person the opportunity to talk about what they feel is completely different, and they might have been a specialist in the other project, but in this one is equal team player. You have no specialisation, and so it might be in the other one was technical. It was something that been done before, invented before, and worked before. In here, that technology is not being used, so that person is just learning as well as contributing general skills to project management and not a specific technical skill.
Coming back from a negative experience, so someone who's left with a great fanfare to go and pursue something that they really love, whether it's another career or a business opportunity, whatever it is, and they come back because it didn't work.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that, because at the end of the day, let's take an easy one. Went on holidays. I thought I'm going to be travelling the world and it's going to take me 12 months. I ran out of money. It didn't actually work out. I broke my leg or whatever it is. And then I'm coming back now 3 months into that 12 months thing. Is there anything wrong with that? No, not really, because at the end of the day, you're communicating that. It's up to the person that hired you back to understand why, what value you're going to add, not why you left. In this day and age, I don't think promising I'm going to be loyal and stay here for the rest of my life is anybody looking for that, either the individual or the company. The world has changed, and most likely this person is being hired and only guaranteed the time on the project and see how you perform. Is how these days it would work.
What about the disruption that causes, that particular instance where someone else has obviously been put into the role that this person was carrying out prior to leaving? Well, how do you manage that person knowing that they've taken over from someone who's now coming back and so they get discarded, last in, first out scenario?
Well, see, I wouldn't do that. I think the person that was given the job, the replacement person, it's their job. It's not the person that comes back job, and that's the clear understanding I'll have with the returning person and saying, this is what I've got on offer, this is where I think that you would make a good difference, and this is where we can work well together. I would do it that way. Having said that, I can understand what you're saying could be underlining, which is the person coming back think, oh, look what they've done there, I wouldn't have done that, and look, they didn't realise that. So it could be on that person's interference, if you like, or the other person feeling, oh God, everything I do is going to be judged by this person who'd done it for 30 years. Again, back to communication. It's two separate things. If the person who's doing the job now chooses to ask this person about their experience or come to them at certain things, it's their choice. And the person that's being asked, the returning person, has got no say or power in that role unless they choose to answer that person if they ask.
Yes.
And that's got to be made clear by the leadership and by the two people. If they need to have that discussion, they should. But the person is being chosen to replace because they got something to give. They're the right person for the job and they should be left to do it.
And the role might be different to what the other person has had experienced in the past.
Correct.
In one of our other podcasts, we talked about orientation. So this is an opportunity for the orientation where you are organising it yourself. If you are the person going back into the workforce after a break of some particular time, then even though there might be some organisation-sponsored orientation briefly for you to come back into the workforce, to get to know some changes that might have happened, I think that this is an opportunity for you to undertake the orientation role as well. Be responsible for your return into this organisation and knowing exactly where it stands and what it does these days, and not just assume that you know it all because you've been there before.
Don't have that approach of entitlement. I think both an employer would be, I'm sure, delighted to have you back if you've been a good employee and you love coming back. But again, don't be entitled. Be more, I am needed and wanted because I want to give. And giving all my experience, my freshness now that I had a break, I had time to reflect, I actually had exposure to other things that are happening, that I can now come even more trained and aware, if you like, on both my abilities and technical knowledge in that period of time. Wherever I've been, here, overseas, whatever I was doing, I have grown.
In terms of managing this person who's come back into your team, your project for whatever reason over the break, how long do you give them to settle into the role?
Well, I guess it depends on the person and the role. Again, if it's something they've done before, it's really hit the road running, because now the only thing I would do if I was the returning is find out what's the difference from when I left to now and not assume they haven't moved, and get myself up to speed on that, find out exactly what the goal is for my new role and where I'm trying to be, and do it that way. The other thing is that sometimes we forget about is the new relationship building. When you were there before, there might have been different people, and now you've got some people you do know and some people you don't know. As you said earlier, with the ones you know, don't assume you know, because their role have changed, they have grown. It depends how long you've been away. Build those relationships. It's your responsibility, your accountability to build up a new network, if you like, and re-establish some of the network that you had before.
That's good. Well, I think we've probably covered the activities around managing someone returning to your team or to your project. So we'll leave it for there today. I'm Kim Bailey, she's Fulyana Osborne, and this is Inside Exec.